Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Talking Numbers, Mastering Profit. It is our series 2 of our Mastering Profit series, which is brought to you by Profitmaster Global Outsourcing. My name is Paul Jansz. It's great to have you guys back, and hey, hopefully you've enjoyed our episode 1 and episode 2. Episode 2, our last episode, we spoke about, are you a leader or a manager? And this is a nice little flow as we get into this episode 3 in this 6-part series. I'm here with the founder and CEO of Profitmaster, Richard Croaker. How are you, mate? You're in the Philippines, aren't you?
I am, Paul. I am. I'm actually in my third week being here. So I love coming over here and spending time with our staff. It's interesting. Our podcast today is on communication and the essential nature of communication for productivity and efficiency. And I can tell you that that working over Zoom and working over the telephones, I don't know whether it's an age thing, but I still feel better when I'm here with the guys and I get a chance to spend some time with them. It's interesting. I've got my wife coming over in a couple of days' time. She's on her way as we speak. She's on her way from our hometown to visit some people, one of our clients actually, in New South Wales. She's on her way there. In fact, that client is going to be coming over here in July. And are we allowed to talk about our upcoming conference yet, Paul?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, that particular client's coming over in July, but he can't come to our conference. And one of the other things that I've been working on a lot this time that I've been here is working with our events management team for the organisation of our conference in September. And information will be coming. If by the time this podcast goes to publication, it may have already been published. But September 2023, we're going to be getting some people over here. We've got a great lineup. We're going to show you guests around the place. Really looking forward to it. And in actual fact, we've got another of our clients is in one of our boardrooms at the moment. He's meeting with his team, and we'll be showing him around a little bit separately. But so it's a big time going on for me at the moment, Paul.
Brilliant. It's good. It's a good time because I know that. Well, I've been involved in some of the planning, and I look forward to. I'm a speaker at one of your conferences as well, at your September conference. I think it's the 13th to the 16th of September. So yeah, look, I'm looking forward to. More importantly, I'm looking forward to coming over to the Philippines. It's a country that I've never been to. I've never experienced it. I know that people that have, and I was with a gentleman only a few weeks ago that was actually showing me some images of his latest holiday. And I think it was in sort of January. He had a holiday there, and it just looks amazing. So yeah, looking forward to sharing the amazing Philippines and getting to see it for the first time myself.
It's really developing as a tourist destination for Australians. I had the pleasure of spending a week with the government tourism organisation here last year as a guest of the Philippines Embassy, and we had a chance to go around and have a look at some of the tourist places around here. And in fact, my wife and I went to an island called Palawan after that particular event. And even though I've been coming here for 9 years, the chance to get out to the outer areas, the islands and the beaches and so on. Oh, Paul, it really is a beautiful place.
Yeah, and that's the great part about it. So while the conference is over a couple of days, the ability to roll into a weekend, stay an extra couple of days as well, and relax and unwind before coming back to Oz, I think it's going to be fantastic.
So come on, mate, let's get back to reality. We better talk about business.
Yeah, true. Let's get into episode 3. Now, you mentioned it before, we're going to talk about communication and why is communication important in management. It's a nice little flow from, are you a leader or are you a manager? And I think, look, the key thing here is effective communication, I think, is critical to productivity and efficiency. The key things that certainly when I was involved in the firms that I've been working with for a number of years now, whether you're running a small business, a large business, a huge corporation, communication has a significant impact on all people, whether they're your employees, whether they're your suppliers, whether they're your contractors. It doesn't matter. but I suppose from an internal point of view and the way that your team may be performing their roles, performing their jobs, getting it out on time, getting it out under budget, those sort of things are really, really important. So that's what we're going to get into today, to where, again, how do you run a remote team as well now that, you know, that we've got a lot of team members that are working remotely. So we can sort of delve a little bit deeper into those sorts of things. Richard, what I'd like to talk about today in my first question to you is, let's talk about effective communication, or the impacts of, let's say, effective or ineffective communication. Are you okay to go into that?
Yeah. Look, yeah, sure. Well, communication's communication. I mean, we all think that the method of communication has changed over time, and it has. I mean, our ways of communicating are different from the days that we would get a phone call with a message delivered to our desk and we'd return the phone call. I mean, in its simplest way, communication is real time now. Whether it's spoken or whether it's through some other method that we spoken one-on-one, or whether it's through some other method, communication is the same. And communication is the way that we communicate. We tell others about what's important to us, how we want things done, and all of that sort of stuff. So without communication, there's no ability to be able to work on productivity and efficiency. It defies the ability to be able to ensure that we have productivity and efficiency. And I can tell you that if you tip that over into an outsourced environment, it becomes a different game again.
I can only imagine. And that's look, you mentioned it just before that, yeah, look, where it used to be you'd walk from this office to that office, or just from your office to out the front, and you'd be talking to team members. Now there's, even with I think in the first episode, we spoke about different sorts of tech stacks as well. And now, whether it be your classic, your WhatsApp or whatever it may be, your groups, you've got the ability to break down groups to quick, fast communication, the ability to transmit files over the internet in an instant. And then you've got the ability to obviously come together as a group to discuss what are our plans, whether it's a workflow meeting to discuss the workflow, whether it's I used to call it a fish tank. So the old fish tank of bringing together ideas into a bowl, and then, let's talk about problems, let's talk about solutions. There's all of those sorts of things that can come into play to identify all of that, isn't there?
Yeah, and you talk about the tech stacks that have been developed. As quickly as we have developed all of those tech stacks, all of a sudden, the environment in which we work has changed. And the idea of now people working over remote areas, whether it's remote areas within the same city or the same state or the same country, it's a global phenomenon that we're now working across multiple platforms to be able to communicate. And how quickly that has grown, particularly over the last 3 or 4 years. Well, they've been there, but how we've had to embrace those technologies to be able to ensure that we can have proper communication.
Spot on. It's part of the change model, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah.
But given your experience in what you've been doing and the amount of firms that you work with, and you mentioned you're in the Philippines right now and how important that communication side, maybe share, if it's okay, can you share with everyone listening now how that works and how, call it, effective communication works between the firms and the people?
I'll just pick up on something that I spoke about. You and I were chatting about the importance of a champion in Australia to build the relationship between the outsourced individual or team and the firm in Australia. So in that was the last episode, I think, that we had that discussion, Paul. And what I was saying is that it's important that we had to have a champion in the Australian organisation who can deal with the communication and aspects of building the relationship with the person in the Philippines. Well, the same thing has to happen in the Philippines. Communication in the Philippines has to make sure that we communicate the right way back to our teams, back to our clients in Australia. And of course, we use different productivity processes to be able to do that. But one of the things about communication that needs to be understood in the Philippines is that you are operating with a different culture here. Whereas Filipinos have great exposure to Western culture, they still have an Asian culture. And you need to be able to understand what that culture is if you're going to be able to have effective communication with them. All of our people in the organisation here, they are graduates within whatever field that they work in. And as you know, we work predominantly in the financial services sector, but we have other areas as well. Every one of our people has a degree from either a Philippines university or an international university. But it doesn't matter. The learning in these institutions is slightly different to the learning in the institutions that we have at home. So that needs to be brought into account in the way that we train and communicate with our people. People here in the Philippines have a different standard of living compared to what we have in Australia. So understanding how their standard of living impacts upon the way we're able to do the work. I'm not saying it's better or worse. Same with education. I'm not saying it's better or worse. It's just different. Now, I could give you for instance, there's today, as I sit here in the Philippines, there is a jeepney strike on in all of the areas around the Clark area, not within the Clark area, but outside of the Clark area. So last week, there was a lot of work had to go in to be able to work out how everybody would be able to get to work this week. The strike's going to last all week because people could not simply jump onto a jeepney and come to work. So that communication has to occur between the administration people here and the staff to be able to work out how they're going to be able to come to work. So communication obviously is an essential ingredient to what we do.
Yeah, correct. And that's a major part of what you do as well. Certainly, you know, a lot of people believe that just because you're in the Philippines that people can work from home, but that's not the type of model that you like. And there's a major factor for that, isn't there?
Definitely. And in fact, we're working through that at the moment. Part of the reason that I come here and I come here regularly is so that I can have the right communication with our teams and build my knowledge base of the culture and the cultural values that exist here. And then I'm very happy to communicate those back to my clients to help them understand the issues that are involved with being in business here. Now, one of those issues, and it's something that is I will talk about all of the time, is the importance of maintaining proper privacy for people who are working in the professional services sector. Just because you are working offshore, that is a different process that you need to go through to make sure that you are compliant with the requirements of the Privacy Act and the other privacy legislation and regulations that we have in Australia. And that's all part of that communication process as well, Paul.
Yep, agree. And they're the key things. I know certainly when firms chat to us about how does that work, and I've got someone that actually wants to work from home. It's like, yeah, well, there's reasons why that you have a team of 100 people in your office. A lot of it is around probably the greatest thing, which has always been there, which is security. Yep,
isn't it interesting? Deloitte released their outsourcing review for 2022, and the top two issues that came up in that particular report were: number one, information security; number two, relationship transparency.
Yep. Not surprised. That's something that I think we can go into in a lot more detail on another day, actually. Let's call it a quick fire, call it speed dating questions. I've got 4 questions for you here just to work through. Tell me what you think. Communication can be a great tool, although what happens when you get it wrong?
Oh, okay. So this is speed dating, 20 seconds.
Go.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's an essential tool. I mean, without communication, you can't do anything in business. But if you get it wrong, either in the process or in the delivery, it can be catastrophic for your business, catastrophic for your team. You've got to get it right.
You got to get it right. Well said. Why the Philippines? Why have you chosen the Philippines?
Mainly because of the Western style of culture that they have here. So obviously there's a cost difference between Australia and the Philippines, but the culture of the people here makes the style of work quite easily adaptable to what we do in Australia. The quality of education is similar. The the technology, the English, those things make it quite easy. The proximity, the time frame, those time zone, I should say, they make it easy to do business in an offshore environment.
Yeah, well said. Now, you mentioned communication and you just mentioned culture before. So I'm going to put both of them together and say communication and culture and call it a capability. How important is that?
In the offshore environment?
Yep.
Okay, well, in the offshore, in the Philippines environment, what Western culture needs to understand is that there is a different way of communicating in Asian culture and particularly in Philippines culture, because that's what I'm experienced in. But Western culture has a way of communicating which is quite direct, and we want to be able to communicate directly about something that we want to speak to, and we expect forthright communication back to us in response to that communication that we've just commenced. So we're quite direct in the way we do things. That's quite different to the Asian culture, where communication is less direct and it goes through a different series of processes to be able to get to the same result in the communication that you want to be able to pass on to the person you're speaking to. Now, that also means that the communication comes back a different way. And Western people, for example, think that Filipinos are quite submissive and that they're not answering the question correctly. Well, it's not about that. It's about the way they communicate it, and it's the way they deliver that back to you. So there's a very good example of the difference in culture just in the way we communicate between Western style and Asian / Filipino style of communication.
Yeah, well said, well said. And now let's talk about the quick one, the role of communication in productivity and efficiency. How important is that to make sure we're getting good results?
Look, if your managers are going to coordinate properly with your team, then communication will be a need. If you get simply because you're working towards common goals, so you've got to have a common goal that is communicated both sides. Effective communication makes sure that everybody's aware of what they're doing. The other thing I'd say is decision making. Our managers rely on the information that is given to them and the information that they're imparting. Communication allows us to communicate with each other for the purpose of decision making, whether it's team members, customers.
Yeah, it's a good point. And look, is it fair to say that you've certainly with the team members that are working for firms right now, is that something that I know people often talk about 40 hours a week and a charge out of 80% productivity rate? Are they at similar rates, or are they higher? Are they lower? What do you find?
Filipinos?
Yep.
Same. The same. And the same when you're onboarding a staff member in the early stages of their career development, they're going to have a different productivity level compared to somebody who's very experienced at what they do. So, I'm not going to put numbers on it, but what we see here, particularly in our audit division, for example, some of our guys are getting exceptional chargeable time and full recovery, because you've got to talk about when you're talking about productivity and efficiency, you're talking about billings and write-offs. So these guys are getting exceptional time. And they're getting, very low write-offs, and that's not to say simply because they're great auditors. They are. Most of our auditors are coming through big firms. They're very experienced in the audit process. They're very experienced in the technology that's used for the auditing process. But they're also working with very experienced managers in Australia who are giving them the information that they need to then be able to make informed decisions.
Yep.
I mean, communication is all about that, gathering information from various sources and being able to apply it, problem solving.
100%. And I think that's sort of one of the great lessons about also working out how people wish to be communicated to,
Yep. Yeah.
There's so many different ways, I'm a visual person, so I need to sometimes see things, which is that's an important part of management, to work out how you also communicate to your people.
Yeah, and that's not only just about whether it's visual or written or whatever, but it's also about how it is delivered, how the way something is communicated makes the other person feel.
Yes.
So let's talk about a manager and a subordinate for a sec. But if you are a manager and you deliver some form of communication, and I think we're actually talking about this in another episode, Paul, but how you as a manager deliver the communication that you want to your subordinate and how that subordinate feels is a direct result of the way in which you deliver the communication. And vice versa. If you've got for example, a subordinate that you expect communication from, but you don't get the communication, how does that make the manager feel?
Spot on.
You know?
Spot on. Apologies there for the phone just going off there, mate.
Oh, so the communication didn't get through.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Oh, your phone.
No, look, fantastic, and a really, really good way to wrap up as well, episode 3. And you're right, we're going to get to some other topics over the next 3 in this 6-part series, but it's a great way to wrap up in terms of just making sure that to everyone listening, there's a lot of different golden nuggets there that we've been able to share and for you to think about, again, as a part of your change strategy, or whether you're happy with it and you need to make certain little tweaks. Just get out your screwdriver and just tiny little tweaks to it, because it's all about how can we grow and make communication better to empower people. But it's about, again, if you can get good communication in, it also then flows out as well, which is really important. Rich Croaker, thank you very much. Thanks for joining us for episode 3 of this 6-part series of Talking Numbers, Mastering Profit. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, mate. Listen, I'll just add to that, by the way, Paul. We actually produced a blog on this particular topic about communication. And if you go to our website and just click on the blog section, just up down there, there is a section about this. And it's a great tickler if you're getting together with your team to actually start thinking about the issues of productivity and efficiency and how communication affects that.
Well said, well said. And that's the great thing about these, again, this content, it's educational content. It's about bringing something that hopefully we can impart on you that you can learn from, that you can then also filter down. It's the great thing about it. So what's the, mate, is it profitmasterglobal.com? What is it?
No, the main website, profitmaster.com.au.
Profitmaster.com.au, fantastic.
That'll bring you to the homepage, and then I think there's a blog button at the top.
Beautiful. And that's the great part about this. This is all, again, go there, use it as a resourcing tool for you and your team members. So, Rich, thanks again. Thanks for joining us for episode 3 of Talking Numbers, Mastering Profit. See you for episode 4 soon.
Join us at Profitmaster. Passionate people, passionate careers.